Failure is not defined by what the world wants us to believe. The other day, when I was looking through some of my notes, I read my goals for the year. I had written them down right after New Year's, and I definitely realized there were a few things not necessarily to my liking as I reviewed the list. Let me first say that any moderately normal and sane person would have interpreted my goals as impossible and unrealistic from the get-go. Those same people would have read the list today and say, "I told you so. I knew you couldn't do that." You know those type, the naysayers, the ones that always undermine every idea that you ever come up with. With this said, much like the naysayers, I unfortunately still have a bit of that normal, sane mentality that courses through my veins too. For a brief moment, as I read that list, I immediately felt a twinge of guilt. I recognized that emotion from the past. It was the guilt of failure to follow through as I read the timeline for each individual goal. The emotion spoke loud and clear to my innermost being that all hope is lost. These things just are not going to happen. I quickly recognized the error in my thought pattern. The reality is, all hope was not lost, and the goals and dreams were and are still intact, even if the dates need to be tweaked. Simply stated, it's simply a matter of circumstantial situations that prevented us from moving to our future location in the projected time frame that created the temporary setbacks in my goal list. However, the dreams and goals are still the same. They're still cooking in my brain, even if they are on the back burner on a low and slow setting for the time being. There is no surprise in the realizations, even if they were temporary emotions kindled as a result of reading the off-track goals. It is likely that everyone within the sound of my voice has experienced an occasion of feeling off track and hopeless in life. Maybe it wasn't New Year's resolutions or a list of goals. Maybe it was a career path, a project, a hobby, or even a relationship that was derailed by some unexpected circumstance. As I shared my failed timeline above, I recognized the last thing those people seeking encouragement and guidance to attaining their own dreams and ambitions wants to hear from a coach or an inspired speaker is that they failed. However, I've had other things brewing in my spirit that bring a much-needed perspective to this message. Failure is not defined by what the world wants us to believe. To say you failed at something is an isolated event, not a conclusion. Consider you're going to build a spa retreat in your backyard. You have all your plans all drawn up, and you decide to begin by putting in the stepping stones that create the path to where the retreat will be built. You get a good distance into the path and run out of the stepping stones, only to learn they discontinued the pattern and you can't purchase the remaining stones to finish the path. Just because the retreat you planned in your mind and hopefully on paper isn't done, and the path isn't completed with the original stones, doesn't mean that the project has failed. It remains a work in progress. Though some people would say something like, "This is just what happens to me all the time. Nothing ever goes my way. Never goes the way I plan it," or other such negative contemplations. They see the path as being a mismatched, unplanned mess. Or might even think they have to replace all the previously set stones with different patterns that can be matched to the remainder of the path. It doesn't have to be negative at all. The more progressive thinking person will see this as a designer tweak, not a failure. Sure, they may have the momentary thought of "why me?" but then they turn the unexpected variable into a new design. They find complementing stones that can mix and match with the initial stones. Perhaps they even use the previous stones as accents to creating a custom design path that results in added beauty and value to the finished product. The negative Nelly is the person unwilling to even reposition the previously placed stones, leaving the stone and themselves stuck in an outdated and unchangeable setting. Note, it is only outdated and unchangeable in their mindset. Are you the stone stuck in your original position and unable or more likely unwilling to redesign your original plan? Perhaps, like my goal list, you have found circumstances that limit your original plans, dreams, and goals. You charted a course to realizing something you really wanted to accomplish, only to be derailed by life. Even though they may have been derailed or knocked down, it's only a temporary setback. Perhaps they were not meant to be delivered by the train track they derailed from, but rather were to be carried by a slower moving cargo truck. You don't give up and assume it is done and the goal will never arrive. At this point, you track the progress and continue to plan and prepare so everything is in place when the time comes and the goal arrives. Much like the shipping analogy, our lives, goals, and ambitions can take on their own persona that can seem to contradict us at every junction. This leaves us wondering how that can be when we were the originating point for such hopes and endeavors. Truly, these variables feel counterproductive to our future progress, and as humans, can be more than frustrating. Let's be honest here. These setbacks often take on the wind right out of our sails, the momentum out of our forward progress, and the hope out of our faith. They often leave the victim feeling like such hope was foolishness in the first place, and that they are the failure. Statistically, more people give up on their gifts and dreams and goals than those who stay on course. When I look at my own past successes and those of some of the greats, I recognize the daunting and unfavorable truth about failure. We hear stories about the most home runs hit by the one with the most strikeouts and other such motivational quotes, but somehow it isn't resonating within our core being. That's because the world defines failure as starting something and not seeing it through or being unable to complete it to some looming expectation. In reality, failure is not a negative contemplation at all. If it's defined appropriately, failure is the stepping stone path to our future. The path with all the variables, changes in direction, style, and maybe even an ultimate change in destination is the path we have to take to realize dreams, gifts, and goals. In my own experiences, there have been so many deviations, changes, and setbacks in my previous successes. These changes often left me wondering at the time if I was even on course or if I was just wandering somewhere in the desert. Yet, when the big picture would unfold and a victory of sorts was realized, I could see where the shifts and setbacks were there to enhance the outcome. A favorite life quote from a wonderful life coach and counselor I once knew was, "God is in the process, so trust the process." I didn't understand or realize when she printed it out for me and instructed me to put it on my refrigerator at the time, just how impactful and beneficial it would be for me over the years to come. We need to remember God gave us the desires of our heart and has a path charted out for us to realize them, if only we will stay the course. When we commit our plans to the Lord, He will guide us through the valleys and lead us to the other side with a plan and intention in mind. We go through the trials and setbacks in His refining process, and it's up to us what we will choose to believe. For as many plans and ideas as I have had over my life that have failed to come to full fruition, there are just as many others that have been realized and successful. When I look back on some of those that failed, I see common themes, recognizing how I contributed to their failure. Then I have to consider how the failures then contributed to the future successes in other pursuits. Perhaps it's time to set that stone, recreate the path, redesign the destination, and embrace the setbacks, aka failures, of your past, and embrace today as the gift with the new opportunity that it truly is. Maybe the redesign doesn't look the same, and maybe it will take a lot of planning and time to fully realize. On the other hand, maybe it can be redesigned in a different capacity and realized sooner than later. There are so many roads that can take us to our destinations that oftentimes are overlooked. A friend of mine wants to move to a new region on a farm and have a lot of animals. However, she felt defeated by her health and her limitations. So now she is planning to move to a small farm with limited permanent animals and is going to foster animals as her health allows while volunteering at an animal shelter. She went from despair and sadness when considering unrealized hopes and dreams to renewed thinking that allows her dreams to come to pass, all with just a little tweak to fit the situation. The person who wants to be a doctor and cure cancer, but is limited by the time it takes in schooling, she can still be active in cancer research and benefits, organize other outreach programs, learn about holistic applications, and share them with an uneducated world. There's so much she can still do. The point is, there is always a place to position ourselves and a way to achieve goals and dreams, even if we have to look at it a little different to get where we are going. The desires in our hearts are not limited to our health, college degrees, or any other mandate or man-made boundaries that we come up with. Or moreover, that the naysayers will come up with to discourage us from pursuing or trying to reach our passions in the first place. So embrace the failures of the past, as they have increased your knowledge, experience, and your can-do spirit for the future. Don't buy into what the world defines failure as. Failure is a necessity for success, and until you wrap your mind around that truth and embrace falling down, it's going to be really hard for you to get back up. So in closing today, I again ask, are you the stone stuck in position and unwilling to redefine your destination? Then it's time to rise up and start anew. If I can do it, you can too. This is Sherry LaPerry, attainable, approachable, and real.